It was one of those picture-perfect desert evenings, mid-70s, breeze just strong enough to carry the smell of barbecue across the neighborhood. My backyard was buzzing with friends, neighbors, a couple of coworkers, and kids darting around the lawn with sticky popsicle hands. I was standing by the grill with Claire, our next-door neighbor, divorced, sharp-witted, and the only person at the party who could keep up with my sarcasm. "Let me guess," Claire laughed, pointing at the slightly charred side of the steak. "You're going for artisan crisp now?" I chuckled, flipping it. "Exactly. Burnt is the new medium rare. Trendy places charge extra for this." That's when the gate slammed. Loud. Sharp. I didn't even have to turn around to know it was Natalie. Her heels clicked across the stone patio like they had an agenda. She didn't say hello. Didn't smile. Just scanned the scene, her gaze locking onto Claire, then me, like she'd caught us whispering secrets. And then, loud enough to pierce the music, the conversations, everything. "So this is what I was late for? You two giggling like teenagers?" The music stuttered off. Laughter dried up. Claire's smile vanished. I blinked. "Wait, what?" Natalie walked right up to the grill like it was her stage. "You think I didn't notice? You and Claire, all cozy while I'm stuck running errands for your birthday?" Claire raised her hands, stepping back. "Natalie, I think there's been a—" "Oh, save it, Claire," Natalie snapped, her voice slicing through the air. "You've had a thing for him since you moved in. Don't act like you're innocent." That hit hard. Claire's face turned white. "Okay," I said, stepping between them, my voice low. "What the hell is going on with you?" "What's going on," she said, stabbing a finger toward my chest, "is that you can't go 2 hours without needing attention. And now you're getting it, from her." I looked around. Half the guests were staring openly, forks halfway to their mouths. Kids paused on the trampoline. I turned back to Natalie. "You're 2 hours late, and the first thing you do is humiliate me in front of everyone." Her eyes flashed. "You humiliated yourself the moment you started treating her like your date." "You're insane," I snapped. "Claire's a neighbor. A friend. She's been talking about her broken faucet for 15 minutes. How is that flirting?" "Don't gaslight me, Ethan," she spat. "I see how you look at her. And how do you look at me, Natalie? When was the last time you even did?" Silence fell again. Claire had already slipped toward the house, face flushed. I shook my head, my hands still gripping the tongs. "You know what? Shut up. Just shut up and don't ruin this night for me." The words echoed, loud, harsh, final. A few guests awkwardly started picking up plates. Jason reached for the Bluetooth speaker, unsure whether to play music or run. Natalie just stared at me like I'd slapped her. Then, with a bitter laugh, she turned on her heel and stormed into the house. I stood there, sweating, angry, and suddenly very aware of how quiet the yard had gotten. That moment, right there, broke something. And it wasn't just the party. I'd spent years building a simple life. Nothing fancy, just dependable. Construction project manager, house with a yard, gas grill, a good neighbor, a wife who used to smile when I walked in the door. Used to. But tonight, it all felt like a setup I never saw coming. The guests trickled out just after 9, leaving behind paper plates, the faint scent of smoke, and a silence that clung to the walls like humidity. I stayed outside, pretending to clean up, just giving her space or maybe giving myself time to calm down. But that silence wasn't doing either of us any favors. When I finally came inside, the lights in the kitchen were dim, the dishwasher was humming, and Natalie stood barefoot at the counter, sipping tea like the night hadn't just imploded on us. She didn't even look at me. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "So what was that?" Her head turned slowly, face unreadable. "What was what?" "You accusing me of flirting with Claire in front of 20 people like we're on a reality show. You showing up late and ready to burn the whole place down. Take your pick." Natalie set her mug down a little too hard. "I already said I had errands." I stepped forward. "You said that to them, not to me." "I got caught in traffic," she added quickly. "Then I stopped to grab your cake. Then I had to swing by my mom's to drop off her meds. I told you that." "No, you didn't." My voice was calm, but every word landed like a weight. "You walked in, picked a fight, then disappeared. You didn't say a thing about cake or your mom." She blinked. I'm telling you now." I studied her, not like a husband watching his wife, but like a foreman checking the foundation for cracks. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "What kind of errands take 2 hours?" I asked. And what kind of wife storms into her husband's birthday party and accuses him of, "You were laughing with her," she said, suddenly louder. "I saw the way you leaned in, the way she touched your arm." I held her gaze. "Claire touches everyone's arm. You've known her for 3 years. Don't gaslight me," she snapped again, but this time it came out weaker. I didn't say anything. I just waited. She shifted her weight, arms folding, then unfolding. I didn't mean for it to come out that way. I was just tired. It's been a long week. Tired doesn't make you paranoid, Natalie. That's something else. The kettle clicked behind her, finished boiling, but neither of us moved. "You want to know where I was?" she asked suddenly, with a tilt of her head like she was testing the question herself. "Yeah," I said. "I really do." There was a pause. Too long. Then she shrugged. "I told you already. Traffic. Cake. Mom. That's all." She said it like a script, like she was daring me to push harder. But I didn't. I just stepped back, leaning against the counter across from her, arms crossed again. "You forgot to bring the cake." That stopped her. "What? You said you stopped for the cake. But you didn't bring one." "There wasn't one." She stared at me for a second, then looked down at the mug in her hand. "I forgot it in the car. So it's out there right now?" She hesitated. "No, I think. I might have left it at the bakery." The cracks were showing. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw accusations. I just stared at her until she shifted again, looking down, brushing invisible lint off her shirt. "I don't want to fight," she mumbled. "Neither do I." I meant it. But that didn't mean I believed her. There was a moment, just a sliver, where I saw it in her face. Not guilt. Not sadness. Fear. Not fear of me, but fear of being caught in a lie. And that scared me more than anything she'd said all night. The house was quiet now. Lights off. Doors shut. The world outside had gone still, but inside me, everything kept spinning. I lay on the couch, one arm behind my head, the other resting over my stomach like I was trying to hold something in, my breath, maybe my thoughts. The ceiling fan above me creaked with each slow turn, shadows slicing the room into slivers. Natalie had gone to bed an hour ago. No apology, no kiss on the cheek, not even a mumbled good night. Just the soft thud of the bedroom door closing and the lock clicking a few seconds later. I stared at that ceiling so long it started to blur. But I couldn't stop my mind from playing it all back. The gate slamming. Her voice rising. Claire's stunned silence. And the worst part? The way Natalie looked at me. Like she didn't recognize me. Or maybe I didn't recognize her. I exhaled slowly, not even realizing I'd been holding my breath. "You were laughing with her." Those words looped in my head, and they didn't make sense. Not because they weren't true, but because they shouldn't have mattered. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Claire and I, we'd known each other for years. There was nothing between us beyond neighborly chatter and shared fence repairs. So why did Natalie come at me like I'd been caught sneaking out a motel door? My eyes burned from staring too long at nothing, so I shut them. But that didn't help. It just made the silence louder. I started replaying the whole conversation in the kitchen. The vague answers. The slip about the cake. The way she said, "I told you already," when she absolutely hadn't. Something wasn't right. I could feel it in my gut. But under that suspicion, deeper down, something else flickered. Shame. Not because I did something wrong tonight, but because I let her talk to me like that. Because I didn't stop her. Because for a split second, when she accused me, I felt like a teenager getting scolded at a school dance. Embarrassed. And that was new. That wasn't us. We used to be good at this, talking, laughing, checking in on each other. Not perfect, but solid. The kind of solid you don't question. Or maybe that's just what I wanted to believe. I turned onto my side, one arm tucked under the pillow, the other dangling over the edge of the couch. The clock in the hallway ticked softly. Midnight. How did we get here? Was this still love? Or just routine? Was I staying because I still saw her as the woman I married? Or because I couldn't picture life outside this house, outside these quiet evenings and shared grocery lists? The questions weren't new. But tonight, they felt heavier. And yet, despite it all, I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to walk away over one ugly night. I still loved her. Even if it hurt, even if something was off, even if I could feel distance growing between us like hairline cracks in a windshield, spreading, invisible until they weren't. I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. Not before I tried one more time. I pulled the blanket up to my chest and turned onto my back again, the ceiling fan still creaking above me. Maybe she was tired. Maybe something was weighing on her that she didn't know how to say. Maybe I'd stopped noticing things I should have noticed. Tomorrow, I try to reach her. Not fight. Not accuse. Just reach. Even if part of me was scared that when I did, I'd find she was already too far gone. Still, I owed it to us. To who we used to be. The night felt cold. But somewhere in the middle of that silence, a sliver of resolve started to burn. 2 days passed with a weird sort of politeness floating between us, like we'd both agreed, without saying it, not to talk about the party. No apologies. No explanations. Just silence with edges. So I made a decision. I got off work early that Wednesday and stopped by the butcher on 7th Street, the one Natalie liked because he always wrapped things in brown paper like it was 1955. Picked up 2 ribeyes. Then I drove across town to get a bottle of her favorite wine. Cabernet from some vineyard in Paso Robles she always mispronounced. At home, I set the table. Candles. Cloth napkins. Real plates instead of our usual mismatched stack from the dishwasher. The works. She came in through the garage just after 7, purse over her shoulder, mail in hand. She stopped in the hallway when she saw the setup. "What's all this?" I smiled and stepped aside to show her the table. "Just dinner. For us." She blinked, caught off guard, and for a second I thought she'd smile. But instead, she just walked over and dropped the mail on the counter. "You didn't have to do this." "I know," I said softly, pulling out her chair. "But I wanted to." We sat down. I poured the wine. She took a sip without looking at me. "I made steak," I said. "Just how you like it. Garlic butter, medium rare." She nodded and reached for her fork. "Looks good." We ate mostly in silence. Not tense, just shallow. She asked how work was. I gave her the short version. She mentioned a new intern in her office who'd already clogged the printer twice. We both chuckled, and for a moment, the space between us felt less heavy. After dinner, I rinsed the dishes while she blew out the candles. And then I followed her to the bedroom. She changed into an old sweatshirt, climbed into bed with her phone. I turned off the bathroom light, slid in beside her, and reached over gently, just my hand on her side, soft, familiar. She stiffened, then jerked away. "Don't touch me at night." Her voice was sharp, not yelling. Worse, it was cutting cold. I froze, my hand still hovering in the space where she'd been. "Nat," I started. She turned her face toward the wall. "Ask Claire instead." The silence that dropped in that room was thick and immediate. I sat up slowly. My pulse pounded in my ears, but I didn't say a word. Not yet. I looked at her back. The curve of her spine under that sweatshirt. The way her shoulders tightened, like she was bracing. "Is that really what you think?" I asked finally. She didn't answer. I stood up, chest tight, and walked out of the room. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. But I left. Down the hall. The living room was dim except for the porch light casting a dull glow across the hardwood. I stared at nothing. And then, knock knock. The sound was soft, but it cut through the house like a wire. 2 knocks. I turned toward the front door, confused. It was past 10. No delivery. No neighbor would knock this late. I moved slowly, each step quiet, like I was sneaking up on something I couldn't name. I reached the door and stood there. I didn't open it, didn't speak, just stared at the handle, listening. Another knock didn't come, only silence. I stood there for a while, just staring at the door, still trying to process what Natalie had said upstairs. Ask Claire instead. That sentence wasn't just cold. It was calculated. She didn't slip. She meant it to land hard. And it did. I don't know how long I stood there before I finally unlocked the deadbolt and pulled the door open. There she was, Claire. Hoodie zipped up to her chin, fuzzy slippers on her feet, holding a mug that probably hadn't left her hands since she walked out of her own kitchen. "Hey," she said, her voice low. I heard some shouting. Her eyes scanned my face, but she didn't ask anything else. She didn't need to. "Sorry," I muttered, glancing past her toward the quiet street. "Didn't mean for it to carry." Claire shrugged. "You weren't exactly the one yelling." That stopped me. I raised an eyebrow. She bit her bottom lip and stepped in just a little closer. I only heard bits. But your name and mine came up. Loudly. So I figured either she threw a plate at your head, or you needed a break. Behind me, down the hallway, I heard the soft creak of a floorboard. I didn't turn around, but I knew. Natalie was standing there. Listening. Watching. Claire noticed too. Her gaze flicked past me for a split second, then came back. "Sorry if this was overstepping. I just didn't want you sitting in silence with all that." I didn't answer. Instead, I grabbed my jacket from the hook, stepped outside, and pulled the door shut behind me. We walked in silence for a few minutes, the night air cool against my neck. The neighborhood pond was just a few blocks away, small, mostly decorative, with a couple of benches and some streetlights casting soft halos on the water. The second we reached it, Claire let out a breath like she'd been holding it in. She blames me, doesn't she? I looked over. Tonight? She blames everyone but herself. I didn't mean to be in the middle, she said quietly. I didn't even say anything to her when she came at me during the party. I just froze. I know. We stopped by the water's edge. Frogs chirped from somewhere in the reeds. Claire sat on the nearest bench and patted the space beside her. Want to know a secret? I sat down. Sure. I used to think I'd never get divorced. Like, never. I swore I'd be the one to beat the odds. I looked over. What happened? She gave a dry laugh. He stopped looking at me like I was someone worth listening to. It wasn't even about other women. It was just indifference. That was worse. I nodded slowly. I think we're in that phase. Claire shook her head. No, you're still showing up. She just doesn't see it right now. But that doesn't mean she won't. I let that sit for a while. She told me not to touch her, I said eventually. Then accused me of wanting you instead. Claire didn't flinch. I didn't come out here because I want anything from you, Ethan. I came out here because I know what it feels like when someone flips the script on you. When you're just trying to hold things together, and they're the ones cutting the thread. I stared out at the pond. The reflection of a street lamp rippled gently on the water's surface. You think there's a way back from this? I asked. Claire was quiet. Then she said, if you still love her, yeah, there's always a way back from that. But it takes two people walking toward each other, not just one chasing. I let the words settle. She didn't push. She didn't lean in. She just sat beside me, hoodie zipped up, eyes soft. For the first time in days, I didn't feel cornered. I just felt human. Over the next week, I tried. Not the way you try when you're desperate, but the quiet kind. The kind where you hope consistency speaks louder than apology. I left fresh flowers on the kitchen counter 2 mornings in a row. Her favorite, peach tulips. I didn't attach a note. Just let them sit there in a clean glass vase. She never mentioned them. But she changed the water. That felt like something. I texted her when I was on lunch break. Nothing heavy. Hope your meeting went well. Picked up your creamer. That kind of stuff. She replied with one-word answers and emojis that didn't mean much. But I kept trying. Thursday night, I made her that creamy pasta she always liked in the fall. Rosemary, mushrooms, and garlic, the kind that fills the whole house with warmth. She said, thanks, sat across from me, and ate in silence. It wasn't cruel. It was just distant. Like I was a guest trying to impress someone who wasn't really interested in being impressed. Still, I hadn't given up. Not yet. It was Saturday afternoon when everything shifted. I was out back, tinkering with the patio lights that had gone out last week. The sun was low, and the tools were scattered across the deck. That's when I heard the side gate creak. Claire. Hoodie again. No makeup. She looked rattled. She didn't even say hello. Just held out her phone. I wasn't going to show you, she said quietly, but I couldn't sit on this. Her voice was strange. Soft, almost sorry. I stood, wiping my hands on a rag. What's going on? She tapped the screen. A video. Grainy but clear, her door cam. Timestamp, Tuesday night. I'd been on a late shift. A man approached the porch. Well-dressed. Confident walk. Natalie opened the door. Smiling. Hair down. She stepped out. Looked up at him. No words in the clip, just the footage. And then she kissed him. Slow. Familiar. Not a mistake. Not a goodbye. A kiss. Claire didn't speak. Just let the video loop. I didn't ask who he was. Didn't need to. I stared at the screen, watching the same 6 seconds repeat over and over again. She kissed him. She kissed him. My hands stopped moving. My breath slowed. And then the chill hit me. Not rage. Not even heartbreak. Just the cold. Like I'd stepped outside in winter without realizing it. I gave her everything I had left this week. And she gave this. Claire's voice broke the silence. I'm sorry, Ethan. I nodded once. I still locked on the phone. But I didn't say a word. She walked in just after 6, heels clicking against the hardwood like nothing had happened. Her hair was pinned up, blazer still on, one hand holding her phone as she scrolled through something, completely at ease. Like Tuesday night never happened. Like I hadn't just watched her kiss another man on a neighbor's porch. She barely looked up. Hey. I was sitting on the edge of the couch, elbows on my knees, Claire's phone resting in my hands. Can we talk? She froze mid-step. Looked at me. Sure. What about? I tapped the phone. You left something out of your week. Her eyes drifted toward the screen. She tilted her head, still playing innocent. What is that? I hit play. 6 seconds. No sound. Natalie. The man. The kiss. I paused it. Right at the moment her hand was still on his chest. Her face tilted just enough to show the softness. The intention. She stared at it. For a long time, she didn't say anything. Then, like someone cut the string, her knees buckled slightly, and she sat on the arm of the recliner. I didn't mean for it to happen. My jaw tightened. I didn't speak. I wasn't, she swallowed. I didn't go looking for it. He just showed up. Who is he? I asked. Voice low. She hesitated. Someone I used to know. From work. She shook her head. College. He moved back recently. We bumped into each other at a pharmacy. He asked if I wanted to catch up. I said no at first. But then, I stood. Slowly. Then you kissed him on a porch 5 blocks from here. She looked up at me, eyes glassy. I was lonely. I flinched at that word. Lonely, I repeated. She nodded, a tear slipping down. You stopped seeing me. You stopped reaching. I felt like I was living with a ghost. You mean the flowers on the counter? The dinners? The night I lit candles and made your favorite steak? I know, she whispered. I didn't expect you to try again. I thought we were done before you even noticed. That's nonsense, I said, holding the phone up again. You weren't neglected. You were hiding. Natalie broke. She bent forward, hands in her lap, tears falling fast now. I didn't know how to come back from it. Once it started, it felt like this thing I couldn't undo. I tried to end it. I swear I did. I stayed standing. Still. You let me try, I said. You let me try when you knew the truth. You let me cook for you. Talk to you. You let me sit beside you in silence while this was happening behind my back. I didn't want to hurt you, she sobbed. I just didn't know how to stop lying. The room felt tighter with every breath. My voice came out quiet. You could have told me the truth. I didn't think you'd still care. I stared at her. The tears. The shaking hands. And still I felt empty. Not angry. Not heartbroken. Just hollow. I cared, I said finally. I cared enough to come back from something you started. And you threw it away. She didn't look up. She just nodded. The weight of her silence pressed harder than any words she could have said. The next morning, I didn't wait for a fight. I woke up before the sun had even touched the curtains and sat there on the edge of the bed for a long time, just breathing. The bedroom was still, quiet, but it felt like standing inside something that had already collapsed. I opened the closet. Started folding shirts. One by one. Not with anger. Not with haste. Just quietly. Deliberately. Each item I packed was a line drawn. A memory weighed, then set aside. Natalie wasn't in the room. I had no idea if she'd slept in the guest room or not at all. It didn't matter. I laid my jeans flat, socks rolled. Passport. Spare phone charger. Toothbrush. By the time she walked in, I was zipping the suitcase closed. She stopped in the doorway. Her voice cracked before she even said the first word. You're really leaving? I looked up. Yeah. She took a shaky step in. Just like that. I rested my hand on the handle. Not just like that. Nothing about this was sudden. She looked pale. Not like someone who hadn't slept, but like someone realizing the damage was real now, that the impact wasn't just emotional anymore. It had weight. Luggage. Motion. I'll go to therapy, she blurted. We can do couple sessions. I'll tell him it's over. I'll block him. I already deleted, don't. I held up a hand. Don't start listing changes like this is a sales pitch. Tears welled up again. But we haven't even tried. Really tried. We've been through worse than this, haven't we? I blinked slowly. No, we haven't. She opened her mouth again, but I was already reaching for my phone. I scrolled to Claire's name. Hit call. It rang once. Then, hey. I exhaled through my nose. Is your guest room still empty? A pause. Then, yeah, of course. You okay? Not really, but I'll be over soon. She didn't ask questions. Just said, I'll put fresh sheets on the bed. I ended the call and slid the phone into my jacket pocket. Natalie was still standing there, shaking her head. So that's it. You're going to her? I'm going somewhere I can think, I replied. That's all. I never loved him, she whispered. It didn't mean anything. I turned to her one last time. It didn't mean nothing either. The suitcase wheels whispered against the hardwood as I rolled it toward the door. She followed. Please, just wait one more day. Let it settle. You're hurt. Don't make decisions when you're hurt. I stopped by the front door. You made yours, I said quietly, turning the knob. Now I'm making mine. Outside, the night air hit me like a quiet truth. Cool, still, strangely clear. No storm, no noise, just space. I pulled the door shut behind me and kept walking. Claire didn't say much the first night. She just handed me a set of clean towels, pointed to the guest room, and left a small lamp on by the window. I didn't touch the dresser, she said quietly, one hand on the doorframe. Use any drawer. Or don't. Stay as long as you need. I nodded, too tired to offer anything back. But that night, for the first time in weeks, I slept without waiting to hear footsteps in the hallway. No cold shoulder. No tension in the sheets beside me. No pretending. Just rest. The days that followed didn't feel like recovery. Not at first. They felt more like stillness, like the noise had finally cut out, and I was sitting inside whatever was left. I helped Claire put up some holiday lights around her front porch. I brewed the coffee in the mornings while she got ready for work. She let me borrow her spare laptop so I could check work emails. She never pried, never poked at the wound. It was day 3 when she finally said something. We were sitting on her back patio, eating sandwiches from the corner deli. The sun was dropping low behind the trees, and the air had that desert coolness that settles in right before dusk. Claire looked over her bottle of iced tea and said, I didn't want you to see that video. I mean, I knew you had to, but I hate that I was the one to show you. I set my sandwich down. You didn't break anything, Claire. You just turned on the light. She nodded slowly, eyes on the horizon. Still, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that kind of truth like that. That cold. I thought for a moment, then gave her a small smile. Maybe I did. Not because I earned it, but because I needed it. That night, I found my old high school group chat. We hadn't talked much lately, mostly birthday messages and the occasional anyone still alive joke, but I sent a photo of me and Claire holding up mugs from her kitchen that said #1 dog mom and world's okayest man. Caption, guess who finally stopped pretending? The replies flooded in. No way. You okay? Bro, where have you been? And then from Jason, about time. The next day, I drove out to meet 3 of them for dinner. High school friends, now dads, engineers, realtors. Real lives, real miles behind us. But the moment I sat down, it was like we hadn't missed a beat. Still ordering the same burger? One of them grinned. You're still pretending you like IPAs? I shot back. We laughed for 2 hours straight. Talked about nothing and everything. I told them what happened. Not in a dramatic way, just the truth. She stopped being my wife a long time ago, I said. I just hadn't caught up yet. They didn't pity me. They respected it. Claire texted me while I was out. Hope tonight felt like air. I stared at that message longer than I meant to. Then replied, it did. Thank you. Over the next week, I took morning walks. Read a book I'd started 6 months ago. I started eating full meals again, not out of obligation, but because I was actually hungry. I posted a photo of the lake at sunrise. No caption, just peace. People commented, where is this? Glad to see you smiling. You look lighter. And I did. Because for the first time, I wasn't hiding behind anything. Not trying to patch up a marriage that had already unraveled. Not pretending to be okay in a house full of cold silences. I was just me. One night, Claire joined me on the back patio again. No wine. No serious talks. Just music from her phone and a sky full of stars. You look different, she said, tucking her legs under herself on the chair. How so? Less clenched, she said. You used to sit like you were bracing for something. Now you sit like someone who knows he'll be okay. I didn't say anything at first. Just watched the sky. Then I looked at her. You gave me that. Whether you meant to or not. Claire smiled faintly. I wasn't trying to give you anything, Ethan. I was just trying to make sure you didn't feel alone. Well, I said, you did more than that. And I meant it. Because the betrayal, her betrayal, no longer felt like a storm overhead. It was behind me now. Not forgotten. But done. It was a quiet morning. Claire had already left for work, and I was sitting at her kitchen table with a mug of black coffee and an open notepad. I'd started writing things down lately, not poems or journal entries, just simple lines. What I'd learned, what I'd felt, what I wouldn't forget. I was halfway through a sentence when I heard the knock. Not frantic, not light, just steady. I stood, walked to the door, and opened it. Natalie. Hair pulled back. No makeup. wearing one of those long sweaters she used to wear on slow Sundays. Her eyes were swollen, not from sleep, but from something heavier. She held a thin manila envelope in her hand. "Hi," she said softly. I stepped back slightly, letting the screen door rest between us. "Hey." She lifted the envelope a few inches. "I had them printed last night. I already signed." I looked at the envelope. She didn't extend it right away, like she needed a second more. "Claire's not here," I said. "I know," she replied. "This is for you, not her." I nodded once, opened the door fully, and let her pass it to me. The papers were crisp, the top page already marked with her name and signature. "I didn't think I'd cry," she said suddenly, wiping under her eye. I told myself I wouldn't. "You don't have to explain," I said. "I know," she whispered. "But I want to. Just this once." I didn't stop her. She took a shaky breath. "I didn't expect to lose you this way. I really thought you'd yell, that you'd storm out and come back a few days later. We'd go to therapy. We'd fight our way through it, maybe mess up again, but we'd land somewhere. Even if it was broken. I thought, I don't know, that you'd still want me." I opened the envelope, flipped through the pages. "I did," I said quietly. "For a long time." Natalie swallowed. "I believed that. Even after I ruined it. I still believed it. But now," she looked around, eyes drifting to Claire's porch light, the small planter beside the door. "Now I can see it. You've already left." I found the signature line and picked up a pen from the side table. No drama. No pause for effect. Just ink on paper. I set the pen down and handed the envelope back. "Thank you," I said, "for not dragging it out." She took it slowly, like it was heavier than it looked. "No lawyers?" she asked. "Let's not be people who punish each other more than we already have." She gave a tiny, grateful nod, then looked at me one last time. "You really look lighter," she said. "Even your voice. It's different." "Because I'm not trying to hold anything in anymore. I was the one who ruined it," she said, her voice tight. "But I think we both got lost." "Maybe," I said, "but I'm finding my way again." She hesitated, like she wanted to say more. But instead, she stepped backward onto the porch. "I'll mail the final copy to your P.O. box. You can still use the one we had. I won't touch it." "Thanks," I said. She nodded, and then she turned and walked back to her car. No slammed doors. No last-minute confessions. Just steps fading on concrete. I stood there for a long time, the signed pages still faintly warm from my hand. It was over, and for the first time, that didn't feel like a loss. It felt like peace. 2 weeks later, I found myself in a worn booth at Finley's Tap, the kind of place where the floors creak and the fries still come in paper-lined baskets. Claire sat to my right, nursing a ginger ale, one leg tucked under the other. Across from us, Jason, Tyler, and Drew, my oldest friends from a lifetime ago. The table was scattered with empty glasses, half-eaten wings, and the kind of laughter that only happens when the worst is finally behind you. Jason raised his beer. "So, remind me, how did this all start again?" I smirked. "With a birthday, a grill, and my wife accusing me of running off with Claire while the stakes were still raw." They all cracked up. Claire rolled her eyes, grinning. "Hey, for the record, I was just complimenting his artisan crisp technique. Burnt is the new medium rare," I added. They raised their glasses again. "To Claire," Drew said. "The unexpected neighbor." "To Ethan," Tyler added, "for not turning into a soap opera character." I lifted my glass last. "To the ones who kept me standing," I said simply. We clinked. And in that moment, with old jokes in the air and the noise of a city night outside, I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt whole. Because sometimes, the people who catch you aren't the ones you planned on. They're the ones who show up quietly, with tea at the door, and never ask you to be anything but real. And those people? They're the ones you raise your glass to. Every single time. And that was the end of my story. Claire made a choice when she showed me that video. She didn't know me the truth, but she gave it anyway, knowing it could shatter everything. If you were in her place, would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments.